Hello and welcome to today's Augustana Human Library session. The title of this human book is Queer Changes, and this is the human book's abstract. The question everybody has but doesn't want to ask: are you a straight couple now? Join these human books as they share their story as married lesbians to a marriage in transition.
My name is Jacqueline Akerman. I use the pronoun she, her. And this is Avery Robert Legend Levesque. And they use the pronouns they, them. We are both alumni from Augustana. So hello, other alumni and guests. Good to see you. We were actually former books before. Right near the start of Human Library at Augustana, we were dancing chick to chick. So we talked about a relationship way back then. Avery also was PW Goes to Haiti, I think 2 different times in the Human Library, and PW being a policewoman at the time. And then now here we are, Queer Changes, marriage and transition. So it's kind of fun to be back and chatting with you folks. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, so like Jack mentioned, our first library book was Dancing Chick to Chick, and it was about our lesbian relationship. Now we've been together for 22 years. We've been married for 15 and a half, and originally it was as a lesbian couple, as our previous book mentioned. Now I'm going through a transition, which I'll talk about in a bit. So Jack, does this make us a lesbian couple still or a straight couple?
What do you think?
Definitely not a straight couple. So we'll talk about that. That's what our book is going to be about. We're very much a queer couple, and that's what we're going to talk about. So first off, I'm going to start talking about my transition, my process through this. So I was quite young, and I knew I was a bit different, let's say, in terms of or sexual orientation. So I came out, I knew way before, but at 16 is when I came out to my friends. I came out as bisexual because, bisexual, there's still a chance that you might be, you still like men. So you might still be normal, right? And then when I went to university, then I came out as a lesbian. I was like, no, I'm a female and I love women. I'm a lesbian. And I went through that. I didn't go through the lesbian phase too long. It wasn't too long after that I was like, actually, this label, actually, I hate labels in the first place, but it didn't fit me. I was like, I'm actually gay. Like I'm gay. I don't like lesbian. So I didn't use that label. And even in our relationship, we didn't use a lesbian couple for very long. We actually we're a gay couple. And then we eventually used queer, because then I became to a point where I was exploring. I felt I didn't feel like a woman. And when I was quite young, actually, before puberty, I was quite skinny. And so I looked muscular, but just because I was skin and bones, not because I was actually muscular. But I really liked how I looked. I looked very boyish, very, like a guy, dude. I had given myself a name, Lenny. Lenny was my name. And when I hit puberty,
I'm glad you didn't pick Lenny.
Yeah. When I hit puberty, things got really difficult because changes happened to me that I didn't want to change. All of a sudden, my flat chest, muscular flat chest.
That you would stand in front of the mirror and flex.
Yeah, that's right. Became replaced by breast. My straight hips became bigger hips. And then some of my features changed. And I had a lot of trouble with that. But I didn't want to upset my family. I didn't want to upset friends. Didn't want to challenge norms. I just kind of like, well, normalize my discomfort with all this and just try to deal with it, which wasn't good. There was a lot of hardships with that. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, Jacqueline had gone to a conference, a sports conference. And when she went on the conference, one of the, I think, sessions was talking about gender diverse people in sport and just gender diversity in general. When she came back, we had this conversation when she's like, I forget the exact question she asked me, but it was like, do you identify as a woman, or how do you identify? And at first I was kind of taken aback by this, but it was so relieving. The first time I was allowed to go check into myself and be like, oh, okay, all these feelings I've had all this time is actually okay. And I was able to go look into the vaults, let's say, of my heart and my soul. And I started thinking about that, started exploring that. And actually we had a conversation not too long after where like, actually, I don't identify as a female. And that's why I haven't been using lesbian for, at that point was like 12 years, because it didn't feel right. And so between just Jack and I identify as non-binary, and she was using different pronouns just between her and I
had to work really hard to use different pronouns, because when you're like just to each other, like you don't refer to the person in the third person. So I had to find opportunities to actually.
So we had fun with that, because then we were talking in third persons, and it was kind of a challenge for Jack too, I think, because then in public, I still didn't want her to use they, them, or any of that. And then was it a few years ago, then to some friends, then I start with them, I start saying, hey, they, them, and came out that way. And then last summer was when I changed my name to Avery and make an announcement.
First, you tried the name on the van.
Oh yeah, so I have this really cool like hippie VW van, which I called Avery Jr. just to try the name, and I really liked it, so I changed to Avery, and I was like, yeah. So Jack has been really great with this, but it's like the name thing happened really quick, because I was in New Brunswick, and all of a sudden I said, Jack, I'm changing my name to Avery, and 2 days later I announced to everybody my name was Avery. But we had been using it a little bit
with a van. With a van.
Yeah, that's right. So now, where am I now? So I identify as transmasculine, non-binary. I still use they, them pronouns. And I've been going through some changes to change my appearance to present more masculine, not necessarily man. So I'm not a trans man, or at this point anyway, I don't identify as a trans man. I definitely identify as a trans masculine. I like masculine features. I want to look and feel more masculine. So some of the changes I've been doing, I just had top surgery. For people that don't really know that, that's basically a bilateral like mastectomy, so removing my breasts, so I have a flat chest, and to make it look more masculine. So things have been removed and shaped to make it look more masculine, which I am in love and obsessed with my chest. But I realize I also have to build some pec muscles because it's really flat and my belly is actually protruding over my chest. So I need to work on that. And the other thing is I've been taking hormone therapy as well. So testosterone, tomorrow will be 1 month on testosterone for me.
1 month on tea.
1 month on tea. So those are the changes. And right now I'm kind of going through a bit of a puberty, which is insane. I have so much empathy and compassion and understanding for some of the teenage boys that I've coached over the years, and sometimes like, what are they thinking? I understand now. It's a real thing. It's a thing. It's a thing. I can't even explain it more than that.
Otherwise, but wild for you to go through that with your brain developed as it is,
Yeah.
so that you understand that you're kind of going through that. Yeah.
But this time, like my first puberty was terrible because changes happened that I wasn't happy with. I didn't want. And now I'm going through some changes that feel really good, like are the changes I want. So that's been really that's been the change, even though that I'm making some my head feels really different, and just like hormone
Even
changes.
trying to find your words sometimes, it's pretty
Sometimes.
funny, or to remember things. Like Avery, some of you know Avery personally, was a detective previously and really good at it because they remember every single detail to everything, like years back. I can never argue because it'd be like, oh, well, I said this or you said that. And Avery can be like exactly what was said. And
On February 12th,
yeah,
2020,
this
at
is what you said to me at this
12:16.
thing. Yeah. But you've lost some of that. So the other day I said, I really hope like that comes back after it's about 3 months maybe of this puberty.
Yeah, puberty. So I'm just starting to feel some changes. So my voice is, I think, a bit lower. And I'm kind of taking some chronicles where like I'm taking some video of like, my first day on T, and then tomorrow will be my first month on T, and just to see how it progresses. So I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, so that's been my experience, my journey. I mean, this is my journey that I've told you in about 10 minutes. Obviously, there's been lots of struggles and lots of really good things, like especially now that I'm allowing myself to feel and be who I want to be. And so lucky that I have a partner that is super supportive with this, because I'm going to change. Like I'm already changing in terms physically. And so this is something that we spoke a lot about, was when I kind of thought about, at first I was just going to do top surgery. I just wanted my breast removed. And top surgery, actually, we talked about a long time ago, even before I talked about non-binary. My excuse was they hurt me, and
You like to run.
and I like to run, and they were impeding my running. That's the excuse. But really, I just wanted a flat chest like I was when I was 13, 14, 15. But you mask things, you justify things. So that's how I justified it. And then it wasn't too long after I decided, and I had my consult for top surgery, that I was like, actually, no, I want to be on hormones. And so that's when we really started having the conversations about my transition, and how it would affect us as a lesbian couple, a queer couple, or a straight couple. Like what happens, and obviously Jacqueline's really important to me, and so having her support and having her feel comfortable with my changes was really important. But yeah, so that's kind of been my journey in a nutshell. But on that side, like, that's how it's been for me. It's all been like rainbow and giggles and bubbles. For you, Jack, how has it been? Like, what's your perspective on being parallel with my transition?
Mm-hmm.
For you?
Parallel, intertwined, a little bit of everything. Yeah, I mean, rainbows and bubbles and giggles, like that's the pretty cool thing for me as a partner, seeing all what these changes do for Avery. Like I've never seen Avery so I guess light would be the biggest thing. Like massive grins, super happy, but through the whole being happy. with these transitions happening. So in when you talked about them, like I could see little hints of that, whether you're talking about getting rid of your breasts for running, or as we got closer to like you doing a lot more exploration, like the face swap app, the best thing ever for people who are questioning, because
So I'm a really good looking Harry Styles, just by the way. Like, wow.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and you would send me those all the time, and I think you were exploring and testing like what it would it be to look like this, and and when you did that, you would always say something like, oh, look how good I look, or look, and lots of smiles and stuff like that. So it's pretty good. And now, I mean, it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks since your top surgery.
2.5
Like,
weeks.
yeah, so it's quite new. But you like Avery, I'm just sharing this. Avery's like walking around like, I am so hot, and like just like, I love my chest, and like this is not something, this is completely opposite to how you spoke about your worth, your feeling, your body, everything. So that feels super great from my side of things, because it's nice to have a partner who's happy. that's super important.
The issue will be like, I don't think it'll be an issue for me, but it'll be interesting. So I have a binder right now for another week and a half. When that thing goes off, like I'm going to be looking at my chest in the mirror every day. Like,
yeah,
I'm
back to the time when you're 13,
yeah,
posing in front of the mirror. Yeah,
man.
Yeah,
I'm
because as you know, those of you also who know, maybe you get a taste of it here. Avery's name is Avery Robert Legend Levesque, and we joked about calling one of your names to be Humble in there, maybe too. So
I went with Legend instead.
Yeah, just like, let's go opposite of Humble, and just you can call yourself a legend. Yeah. So yeah, for me, I'll talk a little bit about my sort of identity journey, I suppose, and then how it kind of intertwines. But for me, it took a long time to come out, I would say, just from how I grew up, and it wasn't even, I was so sheltered, it wasn't even on my radar as understanding, being able to put terms to who I was, or names or labels. Again, labels is kind of annoying.
We hate them,
but I did come out in my early 20s. Once I got to university, we were actually in the closet together for quite a while before we came out, except for people who would figure it out and know. But I did come out, and I came out as a lesbian. And that term felt mostly good, but also it seems pretty, it's very rigid in what it is, I feel like. But it did describe me, at least in part. I do identify still as a lesbian. That is, would describe my sexual orientation. But also for a long time too, like throughout, it's like, no, I'm gay. Like sometimes I didn't want that rigidity of the term lesbian. So use gay often, a queer. I think sometimes when you use the terms gay and queer too, you have a bit more of a family, or these labels don't matter quite as much. You don't have to be so pigeonholed. So I would say, I am a lesbian. I am in a queer relationship. I would maybe identify as a queer lesbian now, is kind of what I would say, if I have to put a label. Yeah, and I mean, I just continue to explore and transition. When you have a partner who's transitioning, you have to explore yourself a little bit more too, or you don't have to, I suppose, but you do. I have. It's mostly exciting, I think, for me, with Avery, and Avery is really great and always asks me like, how do you feel about this? And I'm a slow processor. I don't, talk a lot about my feelings. I don't even know my feelings a lot of the time. I'm really, really slow at processing it all. And, so Avery said, well, like this happened quick, but for me, it hasn't happened quick. I don't feel like, because we've always talked quite a bit, and there's been, sort of indications or hints all the way through, our relationship, on who you are. So it's changed, I think, fairly slow for me. Now the physical changes are pretty quick, but probably not quick enough for you. So, it's going to be being on, testosterone is going to take, kind of 2 full years before you have the full effects of what you want to have. And so that changes slowly enough, I think, because it is, if I'm speaking just for myself, I do need to get used to the changes. Luckily, none of us changed that quick. We both have changed quite a bit. Our hair is turning gray.
We're getting older.
Yeah, we're getting wrinkles. Like all of these things, just other physical things happen slowly anyway too. We both have a little bit more weight. We like all these things physically change, and maybe, your voice is gonna go quicker and those kind of things.
The next month I think is gonna go quite quick in terms of voice.
Yeah. And there's little things that I go, okay, well, like I said, I hope you get your smarts back after puberty. I hope you keep your like really cute, fun laugh. But it'll be deeper. So these are kind of things we don't know what it's gonna be, but you just kind of go with it, I guess. And I'm actually really good and happy with change. It just needs to go slow. I need time to process it.
Yeah, it just takes you time to process.
Mhm.
And then we have been having quite a bit of discussions and reading, both of us. Like I've been reading and researching a bit on perspective of a person transitioning, and Jacqueline has been reading quite a bit and researching from a perspective of a partner of someone that's transitioning.
I have a workbook that I do for partners in transition, and to help me think about my feelings, because otherwise I won't, and work it through, and then I can go back to Avery and ask questions and share what I think or feel, or not too. Like we have the space and the ability to not share things until we're ready to be able to.
And we're giving ourselves space, and which is, I think this is why things are going well and feeling well for good for both of us, is we've allowed each other and we trust each other enough to give ourselves space. And actually, before talking about my name change to Jacqueline, I had talked to someone else before, and there was no expectations that I have to tell her everything. Like there's space for both of us, and we just trust that we'll come together and talk about it. And I think that's been a big thing. The workbook has been handy because some of the stuff that Jack feels that she wants to share with me, it provokes some of her thinking, and then she's able to articulate how she's feeling and letting me know. And that's for me right now, because this is super exciting, really incredibly scary as well. And having some validation from my life partner is super important, because one of the reasons I think that it took me so long to take some of the steps to change was, what's the divorce rate for people that transition? Like, because
it's actually less than the heterosexual population.
Yeah.
So that we were happy to hear that.
So it's like, so if I'm transitioning and I'm going to look more masculine, and we're going to be perceived potentially different. People might perceive us now as a straight couple, a woman and a man. And And that's not what I want through my transition. But I also like, how would that make Jack feel? So that's one of the things that kind of held me back, is all these assumptions and these social constructions around gender binary and these expectations, and how am I going to be expected to behave now that I'm going to be looking differently, sounding differently, things like that. So
Yeah.
we take a lot of time thinking about that,
Mhm.
and really like exploring how that makes each of us feel.
Yeah, one of the things that, sometimes Avery asks me, if I'm worried about anything, and I usually say no. But then I think about it and go through my workbook, and then I'll bring some things. And so, one of the things that worried me was, in what was originally looked at and perceived to be, and was kind of for us as a lesbian relationship, we are pretty like equal, right? As what would have been two women in a relationship together, in kind of the social norms and how we're perceived and everything. And now, if you have facial hair, a deep voice, you present more masculine, people may, and they know that we're together, the default may be to go to the masculine person for, the final say in the relationship, or buying this car, or doing this kind of thing. So that was something that we talked about, and that, sort of worried me. The nice thing is that Avery's also been in the place where you've been discriminated against because of being presenting as a woman, right? So you have that wisdom and knowledge too. So, but just letting Avery know that, and for Avery to be aware. And you mentioned how you're going to have to be aware of that and watch for that, and empower me in those types of situations.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us to like the next little part that we want to talk about before we open up for questions and comments and things like that, is basically like looking forward and some of our concerns and things like that. First of all, start with the good news, the excitement. I'm super, like I've mentioned already, I'm super excited about this. This is something that I mean, that I've been wanting my whole life, especially since puberty hit. Because before puberty hit,
Things were rainbows and bubbles, and
yeah, like I felt very masculine. I was considered a tomboy. Everybody identified me as a tomboy. Like, oh yeah, so is a tomboy.
You'd get mistaken as a boy
Often,
yeah.
And it felt really good, except when I was with a group of friends, because my group of friends would laugh and giggle and be like, oh, you got called boy. And so like it was a bad thing.
But you actually liked it.
Yeah, like if it was just me by myself and they're like mistake me for a boy, or sir, whatever, like it felt way better than lady, let's say. But yeah, like my friends would kind of laugh, and it was like a bad thing. Like, so it made me feel like, wow, I'm supposed to be this girl and I think I'm a boy. So and my friends are laughing at this. So I must really not be attractive. Like is this kind of narrative that plays, especially when you're going through, like, teenage years are messed up enough in the first place. You're trying to figure out who you are and how you're feeling about who you are, and what people tell you or say that you should be doesn't match. It's really confusing, and it's more than confusing, it's actually heartbreaking, because it's devastating. It's just like someone that drops some news on you that you really weren't expecting or didn't want to hear. what do you do with that? So that was hard. And now that I have a flat chest again. It looks great. And then some of the changes are happening. And it's one of those things, it's like, I don't want to be a man. I don't identify as a man. So if, testosterone, you don't really know what the results are going to be. Like I might, because it's based on genetics. So I might have facial hair. Actually, I had a dream. Just one side note. I had a dream about a week before I started testosterone that I took testosterone the night before. I wake up and I look in the mirror and I have a full beard. Not too concerned about it because I'm like, okay, I know what to do with beard, but I have these like big bushy eyebrows, like just bushy. And that was stressing for me because I was like, what do I do? In my dream, I was like, what do I do with these? Like, I know how to trim this, or I can YouTube how to trim a beard, but how do I trim these? Anyways, that was stressful. So I called Jack and I was like, oh my God, like, do I get eyebrow trimmers?
I think it actually came from, we just recently got a little part of a dog, Brussels Griffin, which the Star Wars character Ewoks were inspired by. And this dog has like crazy eyebrows too. So
anyways, yeah, so it's excitement. One of my concerns about my changes is will I still be attractive to Jacqueline? Like, will that be, because she said, like, she identifies as a lesbian, a queer lesbian. But like, if I'm presenting very masculine, how, and we don't know how that's going to be. Like, we don't know, and that's why we're communicating. But that's definitely one of the concerns, like in terms of physical appearance. Yeah, what do you?
Yeah, and for me, like, that's a thing that we're just slowly working through. And the thing is, I love Avery and we've been together for a very long time. So thankfully it's not just our appearances that that we've created our bond and our love around. And I think that's true for strong, long relationships. If it wasn't the case, like, we'd all like divorce as we like our bodies age and get old, because we become less attractive. This is the way it is. But also how much Avery is now in love with themselves, that becomes like really attractive to me too, right? Because I love them, and then they can show me just through how much they're excited about how they attractive they are. That makes me attracted to them and those physical features as well. So that's a pretty cool thing to go through and see. So and well, like, you're the same person. Yeah, like, I love the soft cheeks. That probably won't be the case, but it'll change slow over time, and that'll just be a new change. And I think I'm going to be okay with that, and happy with that. We'll see. I think I am. I hope I am, but we take it a little bit at a time. And yeah, that's when we've been doing, just taking it a little bit of it at a time. Over the years, it's been a lot of years of, I think, slowly transitioning. The transition's happening faster now, but that's been the case, and we've given each other space for processing all of that. I think even for me, as someone who's really close to Avery, I've given the space for you to explore, and been there as a support. You've been there as a support to me too. And we don't, like, I don't know, I let that be Avery's journey on Avery's time, for them personally and physically. Like, I don't actually ask questions of Avery, really. You mentioned the one where, when I came back from the conference, where it's just like, hey, this and this, and this is, I said, this is how I identify. And I opened the question, like, how do you identify? Like, what do you want me to call you and do, whatever. So there is that question, but it wasn't out of, it was just, a general thing. And then really, since I haven't asked questions, I allow Avery to come to me with the stuff, I think. The other day, someone asked about Avery's transitioning and said, oh, they've done this surgery. Are they going to do that surgery? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I haven't even asked Avery this, right? Like, it's interesting how people ask some of these types of questions, because it doesn't really matter. And I don't want to influence Avery's process in one way or the other. It's your process. And so, like, I don't need to know that until you want to share that, kind of thing too, is how it goes for me. So,
and I think that's like the biggest thing, like in terms of being a support for someone and being a true ally, is just giving space and no expectations, no conditions, and lots of compassion. Just lots of compassion, lots of like listening, working through, and
that's a good way to say it. No expectations. No,
because like, no, I've taken these steps for transitions, and like you've mentioned, you don't ask, okay, what's next now? Because even her, as my partner, my life partner, we're married. It's like, well, that's Avery's journey, and that's so empowering, and so like there's no condition to her love and to our to her support, right? And she's there, and then because I feel that way, I'm sharing with her, and I'm checking in with her, and I'm also giving her the space, because I know like all these things are happening with me with my transition. I know this is a transition for Jack too. Like, we're both transitioning. Like, our relationship is transitioning. We're transitioning. We're identifying slightly different, or me quite differently, but as a couple. So, and she's just really compassionate through this. So I think if you want to be an ally, just in general, just being super compassionate, and no assumptions, no conditions, no expectations. And
yeah, because if I did that, it would almost put conditions or expectations on our relationship in, you must transition this way, or I'm curious about this in this way, because of our relationship, where we're two separate people. And so our relationship can't be condition of how you transition, I think, is kind of how it goes.
Yeah. And it kind of brings me to another concern sometimes. Like, I've been pretty lucky that like there's, and then in 1 minute here, we'll give you a chance to questions. And today you have a free card where you can ask any question. But when you ask questions,
y'all.
I think it's really important to reflect to yourself and be compassionate to yourself before you ask a question of a queer person, a trans person. It doesn't matter. Why is it important for me to know this? Is it because I'm curious? If it's because you're curious, Google it. If it's because you want to be supportive, ask yourself, okay, is this question actually truly supportive, or can I say another statement, or just give a hug, or just say, hey, I love you, you're great? Is that more supportive? So I think it's, and then for that to be able to happen, for you to be able to process that, you need to be compassionate to yourself and be kind to yourself, being able to reflect to yourself, I think. And
I think so, you also reflect on who you are, and how you identify, because say you are a cis female or cis male or heterosexual, you're also in a box.
Mhm.
And, you know, do you have a bit more room for transition in how you are and identify, even if you stay pretty darn to one binary? You know, sometimes questions that aren't needed or aren't supportive actually come out of you not really being in yourself and knowing yourself. Because especially if you are in a binary, you've never had to, but it's actually healthy to do that, I think.
And the other thing too, this process for both of us has made me reflect and think about how, even if you're a heterosexual, cis man, woman, doesn't matter. I don't think it's made me reflect and question whether each of us truly live our authentic selves and allow ourselves to express ourselves the way that we are. And it's really questioned, like, I don't think we are. Even if you're a cis male heterosexual couple, you kind of fit, or you go in that mold of what it's supposed to look like, or what
How you're supposed to dress or whatever.
So it's made me question that quite a bit. But yeah, so I think, how about we open it to some questions?
Yeah.
I see a comment in the chat here. I'll just take a look here. We haven't taken a look.
Nancy's gonna bring it.
There's a couple actually too. No, okay, you can read too. I can read it, or I think you both know how to read. It's all good.
I see one.
Oh,
Maybe
no,
someone.
there's another one from Shauna earlier. And she said, my 11-year-old daughter likes to dress like a boy, has a haircut like a boy, and likes it when people think she is a boy. I try to be supportive. I think she'll have a difficult time with puberty too. And she had made that earlier when you were speaking about that.
Yeah.
Do you want to address that?
Yeah, puberty might be difficult. It was really difficult for me because all these changes are happening that you really don't want. And back in the day, I had a neighbor that, because I was a late bloomer, so I didn't hit puberty until I was like 18. So like until I was 18, I was flat chested. I was like, yeah, I felt great. And then I went to university. So on top of gaining the freshman 40, I like developed. And so that was not very good for me. But I had this neighbor that he thought it was funny, and he would tap me in the back to try to get my breasts to come out. Yeah. Oh, come on, let's them come out. So I think all that time is really hard, because then when he would do that, I was like, actually, I don't want them to come out. I want them to stay.
Stop patting me on the back. They may come out.
I want them to come. So I think, I mean, what would be helpful for me in hindsight was to still be supportive. And if you see some changes, like checking with them and not making assumptions, because they might, by that time, they might be okay with it. They might not, but checking in. So because you don't know, and giving that space, and also telling them, like, if they come to you and say, like, it's really kind of judging the situation when it arises. Like, you can kind of plan a little bit before, but you don't know. First of all, teenagers, like, I'm going through puberty right now, and it's a bit of a crapshoot. Like, it's all kinds of things, and I'm an adult going through this, and I know what's happening, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from watching some things with you, and then also reading and experiencing, I mean, I haven't experienced this personally, but there's always a sort of an assumption, or you want to automatically go to the binary too, even with trans people. So, but just knowing there's like such a spectrum and such a different ways of expressing, maybe what they're expressing right now is what they're going to express for the rest of their lives, and that's it, right? Maybe they'll go to one binary, maybe they'll go back to another binary, maybe they're somewhere in between. So I think, like you said, it's just giving space to explore and find where they land eventually, and find where they land. But look where our process has gone, and the different names of our books through the time, and who knows what the title of the next book would be, right? So you just don't know.
Yeah. And so I think the biggest thing is just, space and compassion and no assumptions, because you know, and be observative, kind of seeing, like there, like Jack mentioned, even though like the whole time there was signs, even in our relationship, right? So it's not like a surprise. But the nice thing is Jack never made an assumption, just kind of let me explore.
Yeah, eventually, early on, I didn't let you explore. Actually, I would like always encourage you to have long hair and stuff like that. But that was all me trying to figure out who I was, not, and I was projecting that on you and trying to get you to fit into some sort of box.
Yeah.
But
I kicked that door open.
Yep. Thanks for the question,
Mm-hmm.
Shauna. That's the only question we see, Nancy. Maybe there's a.
Yeah, there are. Sorry, they came just to me. One person is saying, I'm an ally who's interested in understanding about labels. So could Jacqueline share her perspective on pansexuality, if you think it's appropriate? Oh, sorry, that's then to me. Yeah, so pansexuality.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different titles and names, and we all got to figure out where we are at any given time and what makes the most sense. When you can look up a list of, maybe like 200 actually, and it's sort of like you read them and you're like, okay, that makes sense to me, or that fits me. It's sort of like trying to use a Dr. Google, and you're like, okay, this and this and this symptom is happening, but I don't know what the heck it is. And then you read through a few things, you're like, no. And then you hit the right diagnosis and you're like, it just hits. You're like, yeah, that's it. So I guess that's.
Is the question
Here, maybe I'll help along here maybe. So I just thought for ease of communication here, we'll define pansexuality for everybody, because maybe everybody doesn't know. And the Google says pansexuality is sexual, romantic, or emotional attraction towards people regardless of their sex or gender identity. So is perhaps behind the question, given that it was addressed to Jacqueline, that perhaps you might see yourself identifying as pansexual if, as Avery changes, you still find them attractive.
Right. So, if I looked up all these definitions and like what one hits, like for me, queer hits, for me, lesbian hits, that's who I am. So I would say, no, I'm not pansexual. But I'm in a queer relationship, I guess is the best way to answer that. And right now I'm like, honestly, like I'm not attracted to anybody else other than Avery, right? Like that's where it is. So yeah, I'm lesbian, and like I can walk down the street and see, a good looking woman, and I'm like, oh, they're like beautiful or something, but I'm still not attracted to them because I'm monogamous, right? So that's also who I am, I think, at the core. So no, I'm not pansexual, but yes, I am in a queer relationship, and I am a lesbian queer. That would be the answer to that.
That's great. Another question just came to me. Wondering kind of what best practices would be when somebody witnesses a microaggression or an insult or something. Is it better to call it out in the moment in front of the oppressed person, or talk to the oppressed person at a later time?
So luckily, I haven't experienced that as a trans masculine person yet, but I'm still like, my changes are still very subtle still. When I'm in between, maybe that's going to happen a little bit more. I think my gut and my personality would say to call it when it is. That's how I would deal with things. That's how I deal with things. That can seem a bit confrontational though, and some people don't feel comfortable with that. So I think either works depending on how comfortable you feel. But I think something needs to be done. Just letting it go by is not helpful for anybody. But I think that's a bit of a personality thing. That's what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I think so. Like, because, you could say something, but do you have the foundation backing of words of even strength to defend yourself? Like all these, words to defend yourself, strength to defend yourself, whatever it is. Sometimes a small thing, this is from my experience of hearing stuff happen or being said, like just someone, an ally, just simply saying, even in passing as they see it happen, even if you need to walk away, just be like, that's inappropriate, and on you go, right? Just so the person knows that you're there supporting them in some way. Whether you can go further, that's, yeah, a question of circumstance, I think.
I think so too. But certainly intervening in some way, I think is absolutely important. No,
Do you see
so-
the question from Kat? What do you
Yeah.
think your medical team should say or should know about your relationship and yourselves?
Hi, Kat. What do you think that medical team should know? I mean, it's interesting because in reading some about this, like, and then, so I haven't been involved in Avery's medical appointments at all. It's been your process and your thing. You tell me about it after or before, and I'm there to listen and be supportive, but I haven't been a part of that at all. The only thing that I did was after your post-op check-in, 5 days after your top surgery, I came into the doctor's office with you, Avery.
because I wanted you to see my nipples.
Yeah, you wanted to show them off. And the doctor did not acknowledge me at all, that I was even in the room, and just spoke with Avery. And I just sat there, and it was good. Because it was Avery's thing, and I think if they had not acknowledged me, it would make it about me, and it's not about me. I'm there for support. Avery did talk to me at one point and asked me something, and the doctor looked over and like acknowledged. I mean, he did
He
acknowledge.
wasn't rude.
He wasn't rude.
No.
He acknowledged in that, like, he looked over at me and kind of gave me a quick nod, right, and a smile. That's it. And
But it was my appointment. It was my
and you
care.
talked to me, and he let that converse happen, and you
Yeah.
asked me a question and I answered,
Yeah.
and then he responded sort of to you with that. So I think that's good. And then I was reading some about that, and it sounds like some doctors are told to do that or taught that a little bit. For us, I think it was good.
Mhm.
We didn't even talk about that, but yeah, I just feel like our journey is our journey, but your journey in the medical sense is your journey.
It felt empowering to me because it didn't feel like he was rude to Jacqueline at all. So he was still very respectful, like even though there was not a lot of interaction between her and him, but I felt like I was being cared for and looked after, and that the procedure that was that's so validating to me was really important for him to follow up. So it felt really validating for me. And I think because we've been so open and we give each other space like that, like Jacqueline didn't take it like, oh, that guy was a bit of an ass, or like he ignored me or whatever. It was like she gave me space to be there with my medical doctor that just did surgery with me and care for me for 10-15 minutes to take a look to make sure everything was good. So that was super, felt very empowering for me.
Mhm.
And then it was all good. I wanted you in the room because I mean I had, at that point I hadn't seen my chest, so I woke up from surgery high as heck with a binder on and bandage already. And so had no clue how my chest looked. I just looked down, I had a binder on me, and my chest felt or appeared flat. That's all I knew. And 4 days later was a reveal of my chest. And I wanted Jack to be there because I knew as soon as I left the office, bandages would go back on, the binder would go back on, and then I wouldn't see my chest again for a few days. And I wanted Jack to see it. So that was good. But yeah. Mhm. I don't know if we answer your question, Kat.
But you can ask us anytime, Kat, if you have specifics.
You have our cell numbers.
Yeah.
Well, you can also throw your camera and mic on and have a little conversation. That's good too.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Hutchison also says, well, thank you for hosting, and Jacqueline and all, you're welcome. And that she wants to say that you are both brave AF. I'm pretty sure there's a t-shirt we could get you for that. I know you're both incredibly kinesthetically aware, and it seems like you also both have a meta awareness of your own mental health and emotions. At any point, did you go for professional counseling, or did you just become such incredibly smart humans together?
Well, right now I'm a bit of a dumb teenager. No. So we, I didn't specifically go to counseling for to deal with my transition or anything. I did have to go before for top surgery and hormone therapy. You did need to get a surgery readiness assessment. So I did have 2 consultations with a psychologist that is trained to assess your readiness for gender affirming surgery or hormones. So that's the only thing that I specifically had to deal with that, because for me, it was very clear, I never doubted, my doubts were fears of family, of friends, of, and right now, actually, about 2 weeks ago, I sent a text to Nancy. I was really scared about this because that night before I had been reading way too much anti-trans stuff that's happening in the States, which is also happening in Canada. And that scared the shit out of me, sorry to say. And oh yeah, that's right, it's recorded, sorry. It really scared me. And I just had to stop reading that stuff and read positive trans stuff. So in terms of counseling, we didn't feel that we already naturally talk to each other a lot.
Yeah, so there's a few things. You've had some counseling over the years. I've had a little bit, just generally to talk, but
yeah,
but we are
but
both,
not about this gender transition.
No, but I
yeah, sorry to my question, and Avery, sorry about that. I should have been more clear. It was specifically about you both together. Clearly, there's so much love and respect for each other and growth that has happened. And I don't want to make assumptions that just by both of you being together for 20 some odd years, that has happened naturally. And so I'm wondering if this process that the transition that's happening for both of you, if there's been any professional counseling.
No.
Okay.
No, we talk a lot by the fact that we're both a little bit introverted. And we're socially inept. We're good. We're very good socially, but we're both introvert. We're going to be tired after this, and we're going to have a nap.
Yeah.
And popcorn. Yeah. So that we both have families who are not very supportive or emotionally supportive. So we don't have the siblings to talk our shit together with, or annoyances. We don't have parents to do that. We've had different friends a little bit, but you also don't want to dump stuff on friends. You want to have a friendship. And so by nature of that, we've had to have each other. And so we've kind of been each other's counselors, I suppose, which isn't necessarily always healthy either. And we've been talking about that lately, how we need to have some individual
So
counseling to
over
help
the
us.
years, we have had, like, I see a counselor once in a while. Jack has her own form of therapy that she does a little bit lately. But it's to deal on other issues. Like, it hasn't been
Mhm.
about our relationship. It hasn't been about this transition. It's been just our own luggage that we've carried, our own traumas, our own stuff.
Right.
And because we've dealt with those, I think we're able to deal, like, we are able
Mhm.
to be you're just better humans. If you feel better about yourself, you're just going to treat the people around you a lot better.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, we work on our own stuff, but
Yeah, but me, probably not as much. Avery's really good at that, and I know that I need to do that more.
and you have
I've
been,
started to
yeah,
do that more
and it's
lately.
made a big difference, especially I think through all this. There's lots of stuff going on right now, and she's living with a teenager all of a sudden.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah. But yeah.
You
Thanks
both,
for-
thank appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, Michelle did follow up with a comment. Thanks, Avery. I'm a bit of a big mouth and willing to say anything and everything. I'm always worried about making the oppressed person feel uncomfortable. So she liked Jacqueline's suggestion of just calling it inappropriate.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think at the same time, I think why should the oppressor always feel comfortable? I think as an oppressor, if you feel a bit uncomfortable, it might well, it might cause a fight, which you don't want to do, but it might cause them to reflect a bit. So yeah, and I think it's your style. So that, yeah, like, I think in a lot of circumstances, I would agree, go with Jacqueline's suggestions for sure, because I'm the same way. I can be heavy mouthed, and it gives me a bit of a trouble. But in the same time, like, we don't need to make sure that their oppressor feels uncomfortable, because they just made the other people feel very uncomfortable and unworthy, unloved, discriminated, all these things. So that's my hard view on that. But yeah, I think if you feel that you can control your stuff, then do that. Sometimes I can't, so.
Yeah, thanks, Judy. Good to see you here too. And Michelle and everyone. I'll speak to if we have time. I just wanted to mention, because we've heard this a little bit, like Jacqueline, you mentioned that we're both brave, and Judy, you're proud of us, and we this is all true. This is truth. And it's also kind of funny. We have found that an interesting thing, to say we're brave, or to say people are proud of us. We understand that, and we get it, and it is true, because we want to see all of our people brave and be proud of them, and tell people that. And I think that the thing to that is, like, tell everyone else that as well. Tell your hetero friends that you're proud of them, and that they're also brave, especially when they're exploring, because it sort of feels funny, because we're just being ourselves. And so we're not doing anything bigger or different. It is actually because of some labels and binaries and
Social
constructions that make it look like we're being brave, or that we are doing something that we should be proud of, but it actually isn't. It should just be normal. And it should be something that we don't have to be brave about. It should be something that we don't all have to be proud about. It should just be. So that's something that we've been talking about and thinking about. That's how it feels for us a little bit. We love it and appreciate it from people, but also be like, why do we have to be brave and proud? It should just be.
Yeah, and the other thing on that note, I've just finished a book, or it's called Once a Girl, Always a Boy, and it's a story about Jeremy, who's trans male, trans guy, and for him, it's very validating to be told that he's brave and he's inspiring and things like that. So for some people that might be speak truth to them. To us, like Jack mentioned, it's like, well, it still shows, I think, like, why is it brave? Well, there's problems in society, sort of, right? So let's change that narrative so that by just me being me and us presenting how we're going to present our relationship is just normal. And it's not being brave, it's just being who we are. So
we understand it takes guts, because it does take guts to be vulnerable. I guess maybe what we're saying is it would be nice if it didn't have to be.
and so, I mean, if that's what you feel, like, don't stop, still be your authentic self, right? So if this what comes to mind is like, hey, you're really brave, I'm so proud of you, you're inspiring. Just like reflecting before you ask a question, reflect why that is that you feel that way. Is it because something inside of you're not being brave with yourself and you're not being your true authentic self? So then anybody that's doing something that's really like, oh wow, they're, you know, so explore that. But I mean, don't necessarily change, just explore and think about why you're saying or asking or doing things, if that makes sense.
Thank you to the two of you for sharing your story, and as you mentioned, your third published book. We'll have to check back in the future to see if there's another one coming on, you know, discrimination against Avery's eyebrows or something, I guess. We'll have to start working on a title for that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of this does show to me the approach that you both take to life with honesty and love. I mean, the courage and honesty and navigating the complexities of life and career and sexuality and marriage and gender identity. And I mean, it just demonstrates a great care and love and respect that you have for each other. So of course, that's just wonderful. But it does take a tremendous amount of bravery to speak openly about such personal things, because they are so often stigmatized. So I certainly commend you for taking this step, and I'm thankful you were able to share today. I know that it was something that did cause some concern and angst for a bit. So I'm glad that you were able to do that. And certainly by sharing your stories, you help break down barriers and promote inclusivity and diversity. So once again, thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to share your story. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you both for speaking.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
so
Avery.
much.
Thanks, Nancy. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. I see some last things in the chat there. Thank you for your comment and stuff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We see them all.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thanks all.